You're listening to WICR, Iona College Radio.
Welcome back, folks, for our second segment of the day of The Rock is On. I'm your host, The Rock. We're still going to be talking about baseball playoffs, shifting from the AL side to the NL side, and we're going to talk about the Chicago Cubs and their resurgence, if you want to say. And prior to last night's game, the Cubs, there's some people, not a lot of people, but there's some people, or a fair amount of people, that were saying, hey, the Cubs are in trouble. They're in real trouble. Their bats are stagnant. They've been, for the first three games, their bats have been stagnant. Haven't been getting anything going offensively. And they're pitching, is starting to, and opposing teams, or the Dodgers in this case, are starting to get to their pitching. Because prior to last night's game, the Cubs only had one good inning offensively with the bats, and that was the eighth inning of Game 1. When Miguel Montero came in to pitch hit and he hit the go-ahead grand slam, and then Fowler followed it up with a solo home run. That was their only inning of offense. If you take out that one inning in the first three games between the Dodgers and the Cubs have only scored 3 runs in 27 innings, or 26 innings, if you can say, during that 3-game span. Take out that one inning, which was 5, they only scored 3 runs, because they were winning 3-1 in the late in Game 1. Then the Dodgers came back to tie it, and then they had that one big inning to win Game 1. Then they got shut out by Kershaw in Game 2, and hats off to Kershaw. Tip your hat off to Kershaw in the postseason he's having. And then you get shut out in Game 3 when you have Jake Arrieta on the mound, and the guy's coming off, a week's worth of rest. Now, he didn't get rocked. They lost the game 4-0. Or he only gave up 4 runs. But still, you got to score runs for that guy. He gives you a chance to win every single game. But last night, in Game 4, the Cubs, lack of a better term, manned up, struck adversity in the face, and delivered. And now the series is tied 2-2 with a victory over the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium, 10-2. And you know what? There's another guy I tip my hat off to. And this guy, he's been getting a lot of criticism. People have been bashing him, whether it's the fans, the media, for not performing well, slumping throughout the whole postseason. And that one guy is Anthony Rizzo. Because prior to last night's game, Anthony Rizzo was batting 0. His postseason average was .076. And if you think about that, folks, for a guy that's, a power hitter, he hit 32 home runs this year. That's underachieving mightily. And that's not unacceptable, But last night, Rizzo came through. He went 3 for 5, 2 extra base hits, and one of them being a home run. And he rose in that batting average, and he risen that batting average up 200 points. So he's now batting, I believe, 276. But I'll look into that. Somewhere around there in that ballpark area. But he has a comeback game, and the Cubs as a team have a comeback game. And now tonight is a must-win night for the Cubs. I'm not saying it's not for the Dodgers, but it's more important for the Cubs to win Game 5 than the Dodgers, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's say the Cubs win the game. They win Game 5, because this series is going to go to Game 6 regardless. It's definitely going to go into 6 games, because it's tied 2-2. But let's say the Cubs win Game 5. Then the Dodgers' season's on the line, and they're going to put Kershaw to save their season in Game 6. And let's say the Dodgers win Game 6. Kershaw pitches another gem, adds to his legacy, force a Game 7. Now it's all hands on deck for both teams, though. But the thing is, depending on how he feels, Kershaw is probably not going to be available. for Game 7. Because, remember, Game 6 is Saturday at Wrigley Field in Chicago. And then Game 7 is the following day, Sunday. So you need to tell me if Kershaw pitches a gem, throws 110 plus pitches, he's going to be available for the next game in a 24-hour span. I'm not doubting Kershaw. I believe he can do it. There's no denying it, but I think he's not going to be as successful coming off, a performance or coming off 110 pitches into relief. Because if you're a pitcher, your arm's going to be sore, it's going to be dangling, it's going to be out of it. And you may not have that same I wouldn't say same tenacity, but you may not have that same strength that you had prior to your start. So I think if the Cubs win in Game 5, they'll probably win in 7. Due in part that they're going to be facing Kershaw one more time, and he's probably going to get the game. He's going to get Game 6. But if you're the Cubs, and they have Lester going tonight, so you have to like their chances against Uehara, I believe. Let me double check. Hold on. I know John Lester's pitching, though. It's Lester and Medea, excuse me. Kenta Medea, who for 2016 pretty well, 16-11, 3.48 ERA, but Lester's 19-5 with a 2.44 ERA. So you know what? You gotta like the Cubs tonight. But if you're the Cubs, if you lose, dare I say it, if you lose, knock on wood for those who are superstitious, if you lose, then I'm sorry, but I have a feeling that your season's gonna be over. If you lose Game 5 tonight. Because it was evident you couldn't beat Kershaw in Game 2 at your building. And he's going to be ready for Game 6. So if the Dodgers go into Wrigley Field Saturday night with a 3-2, with 3 games to 2, leading the series, 3 games to 2, and you have to face Kershaw again, that's not going to work in your favor. And for the most part, the Cubs bats, in all fairness, haven't been that well. They haven't been that offensive juggernaut team that we've seen this past regular season. Now, is it possible that Kershaw can get rocked and he can get lit up? Absolutely. Every great pitcher, at least once in their lifetime, has been just flat out beat. Didn't have, I wouldn't say didn't bring their A game, but just didn't have that day. Didn't have it that day. They weren't lights out, in lack of a better phrase. They just weren't lights out. Their pitches weren't going well. Hitters were making perfect contact and were timing it well. That's baseball. That's just how it goes. But, you can't... It's a possibility, but it could happen, but it's just... Do you think... If I were to ask you, do you think going into Game 6, is Kershaw going to win, or is he going to lose? Coming off the performance he had last game, which was in the same ballpark at Wrigley Field. I think if you took a survey and asked 100 random people that, I think majority, if not all, would say he would have a better game. Or he would have a good game. Because I think... And you know what? Kershaw has been the man this year, this postseason. He was doing well. He pitched well against the Nationals in Game 3. Game 4. But the bullpen blew it, though. But Dusty Baker said, he had his A game today. He was lights out. And then, coming into relief for the Dodgers in Game 5 in Washington, D.C. against the Nationals. And just closing the door. because you knew Kenley, as good as Kenley Jansen was, you knew he wasn't going to be able to finish off the ninth, and that Kershaw had to get it in, had to get into that game and close the door and seal the deal for the Dodgers. He had to. With all that scrutiny and all, can't win in the postseason. Because I remember, back in 2014, 2013, he lost to the Cardinals. He couldn't pitch the big one. He couldn't pitch well in a postseason game. But I think for the most part, he silenced the critics though. But if he wins Game 6 with a chance to send the Dodgers to the World Series, then I think he would silence all critics for good, and he would really cement his legacy. But then he's got to win a championship. But first, the Dodgers got to get there. But with my and now I'm going to jump in before we go into break. I'm going to jump into my last segment. Last thing I'm going to talk about for this segment. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to give my World Series prediction, because the World Series starts Tuesday. And it's going to be a week from now. And then we're not going to see each other for a week. So I'll give my World Series prediction now. This is what I think will happen. If it's Indians-Dodgers, I think the Indians win. They win the World Series because they have momentum. They have a young nucleus. They have 4 core guys to build around that I mentioned in the previous segment. And they have a manager that's been there, and Terry Francona. He knows what it takes to win. He's been there, done that. He also led the Red Sox. Sorry, Yankee fans, but he also led the Red Sox from a 3-0 deficit to win the AL pennant back in 2004, and then end the Boston curse, or the curse of the Bambino. But I think if it's Indians-Dodgers, Indians win. I'd say Indians in 6 if it's Indians-Dodgers, because the Dodgers are a good team though, and they're tough, and they're a formidable opponent. They're a formidable team, and they have some pretty solid hitters with Adrian Gonzalez, Justin Turner, Jock Peterson, and Corey Seager. But if it's Indians-Cubs, which, in my opinion, prior to this postseason, or when all the playoff teams were set, that was the most ideal matchup. If it's Indians-Cubs, I think it's a flip of a coin, and it's either way. Because, you have 2 of the greatest managers in the game, or the best managers in the game of baseball, guys that are proven winners, great young players, great phenomenal bullpen, and solid starting pitching. Both these teams are similar to one another. And if it turns out to be Indians-Cubs, and I think a lot of people in America are going to be rooting for that series to happen, it's a flip of a coin, and it could go either way. Back after this.